Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another installment in our new figure showcase series. And if you're unfamiliar with the channel and this is your first time tuning in, for this series we typically take a look at a newer release that I'm lucky enough to add into my collection. Although from time to time I will also pick up older figures. But for today's installment we'll be taking a look at the Neytiri 6-scale figure by Hot Toys from Avatar: The Way of Water. So we previously looked at the Jake Sully figure from this same movie, which I thought was amazing, but we'd already gotten a version of Jake Sully from the first release, so now at least we're finally getting Neytiri. And that was something I always thought Hot Toys missed with the first movie. It would have been a great addition and great to get Neytiri in that final battle look from the first release, with Jake Sully. Now look, at the end of the day, we're finally getting her in hand. And I think if you're a fan of the movie, she's a pivotal character that you would want to have in your collection. So let's take a look at everything we're getting here. And just a quick note before we do that, this is the deluxe release, which includes the diorama display base. There is a standard release as well, but that's really the only difference. Everything else is completely identical. So again, just taking a look at everything that Hot Toys is giving us here, you're getting that set base here, which is an environmental replica of the aquatic setting for Pandora that the movie primarily takes place in. You also get a very small selection of spare hands, a knife, and then this very impressive looking bow, which if memory serves is held by the tribal elder. And you get some arrows to go along with that. Look, the one thing that I don't think is conveyed by these images is the scale of everything. The figure itself is tall, but the accessories, like the bow, are pretty massive in their own right. And these are definitely figures that are going to require some more space to display properly. But overall, when you look at everything, while there's some intricacy that we're going to get into to the accessories, it's overall a very simple release that doesn't include much more to it. So let's jump into those accessories into a little bit more detail, and we'll start with the hands, which, let's be honest, again, like I said at the start, you're not getting much here. You get a total of 6 hands, 2 relaxed ones that are already pre-installed on the figure out of the box, and then a few alternates, including 2 gripping hands and 2 specifically designed hands to hold the arrow and the bowstring. Hands look great, and it's nice to see the recreated details for Neytiri here, with only the 4 digits, and they're very elongated, slender fingers that give you that alien-like feel. Paint apps are very decent here, including the nice white dots that are running down the top of the hand. Next up, you do get her knife, and look, if you've seen the movie, you know she has one of those final moments with the knife where she's fighting Quaritch, so that's a great weapon to have. Now the design itself is pretty nice, similar style to the one we got with Jake Sully. It looks like it is a sharpened stone with some grooves along the surface of the blade and that stone paint app. There's also a lot of detail in the handle itself with these binding details that are nicely painted and set up. And what's pretty nice here is you do get this feather looking attachment at the end of the handle. It is pre-molded and looks good, but I do wish it were a little bit more mixed media with the plastic portion. There's just a little issue I have where it doesn't seem to drape naturally, so that was an interesting choice. But next up is really the most striking weapon from the set, and that's the bow, which we saw Neytiri get from her father in the first movie. Scale on this thing again is insane, but the detail work is also really intricate because there's so much going on with the bow itself. It has the ornate arms that look like feathers from some of the wildlife on Pandora that have this nice blue metallic paint app to them. But the wood portions of the bow itself are also well done, with the polished looking ends of the bow and the handle having a ton of great detail work, including those light panels that include some Na'vi text. The string is functional and includes a nice red strand on it, but the only negative I have here is at the front of the bow where you have these strands of rope hanging. I wish that Hot Toys had again done these with actual rope material as opposed to the plastic that we're getting here, but it's just a slight issue. And then you do get 2 arrows, although she doesn't include a quiver to house them. Maybe there's a pose where she can be holding both. The tips of the arrows again look like some sharpened stones, and the end of the arrow has some pre-molded feathers that look great. Both are identical and have solid detail work on the tips and the feathers, and again the scale, they're pretty significantly sized. So now let's get into the diorama base here, which is the highlight of the deluxe set. So it is an environmental base representing the aquatic setting of that second movie. And one of the great things too is that it's totally different from the one that came with Jake Sully. It would have been easy for Hot Toys to just give us the same or a very similar base, but here they're giving us a nice, more intricate environment with the different aquatic plant life. So immediately what stands out are these coral reef-like elements that look great, including that coral-like texture and the paint application is really solid. And then you have the big, I want to say mushroom looking element that just juts out and stands out. Base is clearly bigger than the one we got with Jake Sully as well, just if you were wondering. You do get a nice variety of plants with a nice array of color gradients, including some translucent pieces for the light up feature, because yes, this base does also include light up elements. The surface of the base does look like a sandy beach as well, so it's pretty well done overall and doesn't actually overshadow the figure. Just a good complementary piece. Now, just like the Jake Sully base, this does light up, and it includes those two modes, with one that is just a static one with the lights on that looks good and keeps things bright, and the second mode has those flickering lights, although it's more of a pulsing movement with the lights gradually cycling on and off and shifting between what's on. And once you turn the lights off, just absolutely stunning. The lights are nice and bright and clearly just bring a little sense of life to the base and help to light up the figure. It's really a great diorama piece, and I think it's going to look great with the Jake Sully base as well. But to me, the pulsating lights are just amazing and really eye-catching. So overall, I'm happy that I ended up going with the deluxe to get this piece. Now, let's jump into the figure itself, and we're going to start with the sculpt. It's phenomenal. Neytiri has a slightly more feline look than Jake Sully has, that Hot Toys was able to capture well here. Now, she does come with a fairly stoic look, which is fine. In the movie, she is very expressive though, so it might have been nice to get an expression on the sculpt. That's just a small wish list item, but look, I'm glad we have this Neytiri regardless. The other standout element here, without a doubt, have to be her eyes, because these are at a larger scale than your standard 6 scale figure. There's just so much visible detail on these, and the eyes look so real, and I think bright is the best way to describe them. Hair is fully sculpted with braids, and she does have a headpiece as well as an earpiece that matches the one that came with Jake, as well as the throat mic. Paint apps are just stunning, with the tiger stripe detailing and the ears looking great, including, again, some earrings on one ear. The only slight nitpick I have with her here is that on that right ear, she has a pretty visible seam line. It is a little distracting, to be honest, but with all the exposed joints, not a deal breaker. Now, her hair is set up as a bunch of braids. They look great. Hairline is well done, and there's some interesting details like beads and feathers hanging from the sculpt, although everything is again sculpted here, which does feel like a slight step back when you compare to that original Jake release, which had actual feathers and beads on the hair. But maybe Hot Toys figured this would keep things more pristine over the long run. But overall, really amazing looking sculpt. Now, as far as the rest of the figure, she's definitely a new body. Shorter than the Jake figure and also a little more slim with skinnier arms and legs. Joint structure overall remains about the same though. Everything is exposed, so just be prepared to deal with that, because I do recognize for some collectors that exposed joints are an issue. But otherwise, clothing wise, she doesn't include much. She comes with that throat mic, and then she has a covering for her chest that's plastic with some nice detailing, creating kind of a gold lattice work that does include some beads. Again, seems interesting to me that everything is molded. Her tail does have some additional detail work along it that does set it apart a little bit from the Jake figures. And then her feet are actually really interesting because they carry on that Navi trait of just having 4 digits. So it almost looks more like a sleight hand. Very interesting overall. So she is a very striking figure, and it's great to have her. Now, there is one big thing that I have to point out. Balancing her is a challenge, and I would strongly suggest that you use the stand with her. I don't know if it's her feet. I did manage to get her standing on her own for a bit, but she does tend to topple over, and I think she's just a little top heavy from a body design perspective. So unless you can perfectly balance her, just be careful. I had her fall over twice on me, and I was just happy that the figure and the sculpt in particular didn't get damaged. So that's my warning with this one to anybody that's going to get her. So overall thoughts on her, there are some issues and some interesting design choices. The fact that she has difficulty standing is alleviated by the stand and that gorgeous diorama base. Body is a little bit limiting, but when you do get her in some poses, she looks stunning. And to me, the critical accessory is that bow. You can see her holding it, and I have to repeat that the scale on the figure and the bow with the base, pretty impressive overall. So I know that not everyone was keen on these figures, but if you like the movie and have the space, she's a standout piece that will go great with those Jake Sullys. Just beware of those limitations with the posability and the exposed joints. For me, I'm very happy to finally have an Neytiri figure in hand, and one that's done so well. Again, not perfect, but very good release from Hot Toys. Pretty sure this one's going to conclude the line, but I have a feeling we'll be seeing more Avatar releases from the upcoming movies. So that was a quick look at Neytiri from Hot Toys. Let me know your thoughts on this one, and as always, thanks for watching. And if you are enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.